want to know, I have a question about I wouldn't say censorship, but the fact that you have more liberty working for Image and doing your own stuff. Are there any rules, are there any guidelines that you are given, or lines that you couldn't cross, or are you just given complete freedom to do absolutely whatever you want? And just, yes, yeah, like this. I know you had some, sex images in Saga, and I don't know if it's generated like lots of reactions saying, oh, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, our book is very dirty, and no one gives a shit about it, and it's great. I think even working at Vertigo, where there were some restrictions. There would also be sometimes you would self-censor yourself. Vertigo is kind of a brand, and you want to find a story that will fit into this brand. And the great thing about Image is there's no brand. You can do a non-fiction book, you can do a humor book, you can do a talking animal book. It's really, I think it's daunting for some creators, where they'll come and they'll try and pitch Image a book, and should I do this book or that book, and Image doesn't care. They just want you to do something that you're passionate about. So no, I think there are no rules that we can do. If there is, we haven't found it yet.
Yeah, when we first started Saga, we asked the Image publisher, Eric Stevenson, if he would sort of act as our editor, which he does in a very, very loose capacity. He doesn't really edit the book, but sometimes he'll offer us suggestions if we're going to do something, that's kind of in poor taste. He might gently suggest that we don't do that. It might hurt our sales. And when we do it anyway, he has our back.
That's right. We had our new hardcover features a sort of graphic image of breastfeeding, and I remember Eric, we sort of had a lot of back and forth, that he said, I think we'll get some pushback from American retailers, they'll be uncomfortable with this, and we were sort of defending it, and we went back and forth a bit, and finally Eric just said, I'm not your boss, you're your own boss at Image, I'm just telling you, but you can do whatever you want to, and we did, so yeah, it's a real joy.
I think people who are starting out at Image, who maybe don't have less of a name, might get more censorship, or they might be a little bit more careful. Probably with people at this table, they're more likely to say, oh, whatever you want, because we've shown that we're able to pull off certain things in our careers, and we're probably fine. But I have some younger friends who are trying to get in, and Image they're a little different with those up-and-comers. I think we probably see the best of what Image offers. We have help with finding store signings. We have help, putting posters together. I'm working with Mark Millar right now, and I'm sure because he's such a successful writer, I think it's in Image's interest to try to help him sell as many books as he can. Whereas if we were just two guys, we might find Image, it might be hard to get them to call us back sometimes, And it's no, criticism of Image whatsoever. They're just a small company without a lot of capital, so if there is only 15 employees there, it makes sense that they would sort of want to focus on Saga or whatever that's going to sell big. And the little books they're happy to have as well, but there's just not as many resources to help them all the time. So as you get your sales increase, it's probably a little easier to maneuver it than it is for everybody. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yeah, that's true.
Scott, is, for example, the reason you're publishing Witches at Image, the reason that you could go into an horror story really far?
Yeah, I mean, the book that I'm doing there now, Witches, I wanted to do there because I felt it was probably the most personal book that I'd done, and there was going to be material in it that I knew was tricky for me and darker, and it was something I wanted to have full control over and ownership of, and I had done stuff at Vertigo, and I love that company, and I love the support that they've given me, and I still have American Vampire there. But I felt like I learned enough to try and challenge myself and do a book that I would have sort of more hand in the sausage making, I guess, of too. Like I would be involved in, the publicity or the lettering or choosing how the book would be presented, choosing the structure, choosing the all of those things, that are sort of, that you're not shielded from, but you're just not really a part of. I think sometimes that even a company like Vertigo, and that can be a real comfort, especially when you're new. The thing that was great about Vertigo for me was that I had all of this great help, you know, and I needed all of that help. I needed the whole machinery of DC to help me both promote my stuff and I think also to just teach me how to do, you know. I was so new, it was sort of like, you know, 20 panel pages and all kinds of terrible decisions. Now I felt like with Witches, it was a book that I knew I didn't know if it would do well. I mean, I thought ultimately it was, I was very excited to do it and do it with Jock because I felt like it was going to be something that, yeah, it was a very personal kind of horror. And with that book, I wanted to be able to do essays for the back, and I wanted to be able to, you know, just put in extra material and all of that. So I felt like having control of it this time would be a good challenge, you know, something that I hadn't really tried. I had done a book at Image called Severed, a horror book a few years earlier, but I had co-written it with a friend of mine, and, you know, to be fair, he really did the lion's share of all the production work, because I was still trying to get ahead of TC, so I was shielded from a lot of that. So this time I wanted to sort of see if I could do it and be involved, and it's been a terrific experience. I mean, I feel like, you know, not only is there a certain, just, I think, glow that comes with owning the book from go, you know, because with other companies like Vertigo, it's not, you don't own it. You know, when I started with American Vampire, I was nobody, you know, and they when I sold that to them, the rights went away forever, pretty much, you know, the media rights. And luckily, since then, because of how things have gone, we've been able to sort of renegotiate that. But you know, owning it from go and knowing it's yours, and then deciding, do we want to try and, you know, go out and shop it to TV or movies, or do we want to just keep it private? I mean, all those decisions are yours, and each one of them sort of brings with it, I think, a certain sense of both empowerment, but also wonder. You know, you learn about, for me, like learning just that you can do these things and who the people are and what it means to try this or that. It's empowering just because it's fascinating, and I feel like it's almost like, you know, trying a whole different set of jobs that you didn't know you could do. So I really love it. I mean, having that kind of control, it would be very hard to relinquish that, you know, at this point, because it's something that I feel like has become part of the process of making the book for me. And I don't mean trying to sell it to me, I just mean the actual production of the book is important, you know, to me in a way that it wasn't before. I knew, you know, the art was important, the coloring was important, and obviously, like, you know, the letter, but I didn't really have we didn't have the same relationships that I have on this kind of book, with you know, with you know, the printing and the publicity. All of it is sort of your decision and your collaboration, and that, to me, is just a completely eye-opening and kind of wondrous experience.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan, you told us that basically you're your own boss, and that you get this freedom as opposed as Marvel or DC, which has more rules. Do you think that's how is the difference, or is it a good evolution to have an editor that's going to kind of form you to be able to see this as a whole, and then being able to launch this series with more knowledge about, you know, editor, because you end up being your own? Or is it like more consulting, you know, how is the relationship goes from the editors working at Marvel DC to Image?
I'm a contrarian bastard, so I don't like editors. I never had a great time working with editors, but I always felt I'm doing this work for, you know, a few thousand people, and the comics that I love feel like they're very personal voices, and I like unfiltered work. So I never wanted someone to make my work a little bit better or a little bit more professional. I just wanted to communicate with the audience and have sort of nothing between us. So yeah, I'm sure looking back that, yeah, I think you benefit from just doing a lot of work and writing or doing a lot of art, but yeah, I never really felt the need for an editor. Maybe there are people who read my books who think I should have a stronger editor, but I love that, you know, I write the book for one person, for Fiona, and that collaboration is a joy. I don't think we need someone else coming in and telling us how to do it. So I know that's not for everyone. Some people really like working with that sounding board or having someone, and if that's the case, Marvel and DC might be a better fit. But if you want to be sort of adventuresome enough to just go out there and see how people react to the sort of uncensored you, Image is one of the few places to go.
Can I say something to that too? Because I totally agree with you in the way that one of the great things about Image is that you can choose. I hired David there, David Brothers, to edit our book. For me, I don't know if it's just that I need to sort of talk out the story and have somebody as a sounding board first, but one of the great things about Image too is that you can decide, you know, and for me, like, I think maybe there will come a time when I really don't, I feel like I don't want that and don't need that at all, but just from my process right now, I still get very nervous and like to sort of talk around certain things, and, you know, hiring someone to do that with me instead of burdening. I try with my friends a lot, but then I feel like, I should just pay somebody for this, because I take too much time with them. And with Image, it's great, because Eric will say, if you want an editor, you can hire an editor. If you don't have to have one. And so it's whatever you're comfortable with, you know, and that way it's great. You just pick your own process.
But it sounds like the difference is the editor here is your employee, not your boss. So when you get a suggestion at the end of the day, you don't have to take it. Whereas Marvel and DC, we work for them. We have to. So
100%.
Yeah,
It's a very good point. Yeah.
Image has launched a lot of new series, which with a lot of diversity in terms of stories and characters, and it's been a really good success commercially, and attracted a lot of new readers also. Do you think this had an impact on the industry in general, or it's reflected on also the big companies realizing that there were more readers than just guys, basically, and open to a lot of new people to enter into the comic book stores and looking for comic books?
I'd like to give credit to Image so that we could say that we're all part of this catalyst that's changing the industry. But I think it's just sort of a wave that's happening across the board, across all media that Image is a part of. But you know, it's affecting everyone simultaneously. And I think it's easier for a company like Image to sort of lead the charge, because they don't have 75-year-old properties that they need to take care of in a certain way, and they don't have, you know, like a mother company to answer to. So it's easier for a company like Image to take risks when it comes to publishing new talent or doing a diverse, different array of genres and different characters. But yeah, it's also happening at Marvel and DC as well, I think, with new books like, you know, the new Batgirl, the new Miss Marvel. I think everyone is sort of working towards the same goal.
I just think there's smart people and dumb people at each company. You can't go to these conventions in America and not see that there's a changing group of, there's more women, there's, you know, you see all of the different people, and there's the smart people to pick up on that are editors for DC, Marvel, Image, etc. And then there's the dumb people that just think our market is never going to change, and it's just aging men and that's it. So but there's probably more of those smart people at Image.
I think that I think the readership changed in the industry. I think the technology changed with, you know, digital distribution. I think TV changed, Breaking Bad, and Downton Abbey, and suddenly people were willing to wait. Like you guys on Saga work for, you know, 6 issues, 6 months, and then take a break, and pretty much like that. It's not like serialized like Spider-Man is, twice a month, 4 times a month, whatever. Something happened. No, I don't think anyone really knows what. Scott and I were talking about it, and he described it as a perfect storm of a lot of things. But you know, Image was just sort of there and collected and benefited, and we all jumped on it. You know, 10 years ago, there was a lot of Image was still there, and there was a lot of books that maybe, you know, weren't so great at Image, and some of them were. But now, you know, when you see Saga and East of West and all this stuff that's coming out, it looks as good, if not better, than Marvel and DC. And I think that they would love to find a way to gain from this, but it's like a big, slow-moving ship. It's just hard to change direction for those companies. And Image, I describe it as a bunch of Viking ships and small crews, and there's some that sink all the time, but you don't really hear about them. But if you know what you're doing and you know how to sail, then you can benefit a lot. And I remember before this big shift happened, let's say that this has been happening for 2 years, I had a talk with Mark Millar, and he saw this coming, and he was asking me if I wanted to do a book with him. And you know, Walking Dead was out, but that was the exception. That was something that you couldn't do twice. And then Saga came out, and it came out with Punk Rock Jesus almost day by day or month by month, and then their numbers were like this, and my book just ended. And then once the East of West, the numbers, you started hearing rumors, and we all talk, luckily. And you know, we're not rubbing in each other's faces what our numbers were or sales were, but we knew that something was changing. And then after the East and West stuff hit, and some of the other books, everyone was just like ready to pounce on it. And now you just see a lot of big time creators who are coordinating some kind of project with Image if they can. There's people who are still working for Marvel and DC, and I can't understand why. I've had a lot of phone calls with creators who, yeah, but I really like Spider-Man. I'm like, don't you understand that you're leaving money on the table? Spider-Man is not going to pay for your kid's college. Like, believe it or not, they're still stuck in this cycle of like, well, all I wanted was to draw Spider-Man. And if they can't pull themselves back and go, maybe it's more lucrative to own my intellectual property and come back to Spider-Man later. So, I mean, I'm really lucky to be friends with most of these people here. We are all wired kind of the same way. So that was a really long conversation I just had with myself.
But it is changing. I mean, being in the superhero world, you see it changing, Image changing that industry really monumentally, and you hear them talk about it internally all the time. Like, Image comes up over and over and over in the discussions. Like, you know, why are we losing so many artists? Why can't we get someone on these books? You know, because they have an Image series. And historically, I mean, if somebody in the Superman office calls you, you want to do a big Superman book, you would, I mean, I don't know, the wisdom would be at that time, or you would assume that someone would be jumping at the chance to work on one of these big superheroes as opposed to doing a smaller indie book. But it's the opposite, which is terrific, and the way it should be, which is they're not only having trouble, I think, getting people to do things, but they're also seeing the excitement around these books, and they're adapting their books to sort of try and bring some of that energy, which is a good thing, you know, like Fiona was saying, Batgirl or Becky Cloonan's Gotham Academy, or Ray Fox with Gotham by Midnight, and books that are taking chances and that are different, because those editors or the people at DC see, you know, the tastes are just changing, the zeitgeist is different. What they want is not the tried and true combinations, and it's scary, it's fascinating and scary as somebody in superheroes when you see those combinations fail, when DC bets on them in certain ways sometimes, like this person and this person on this book and this sort of, you know, and historically those things have done well, and then you see them not do as well as they were supposed to, and you see the noise around books like a change on Batgirl even within the superhero, or, you know, how well something like East of West does, or Lazarus, or any of us, Southern Bastards, or so that conversation is just, it's a constant there, where I think they're reacting to what Image is doing in a way that's both exciting in some ways, and also you can see them trying to figure out how to still entice talent to come, you know, which I think is a great thing overall. It's changing for the better, and what it reflects to me is just that the readership is suddenly there for I mean, going back, sorry to talk so much, but what Brian was saying earlier too, when he said that Eric just wants you to do the book that you want to do. I mean, that was like a really eye-opening moment for me when I met with Eric for the first time and was pitching Witches and a couple other things, and I asked him, I said, you know, which one of these would fit into your slate the best? Do you have horror books? Do you want me to do I had 3 or 4 ideas, and it was like a sci-fi one. Which one fits your publishing, you know, slate the best? And he was like, whichever one you want to do the most. And it didn't matter how many books they had of one kind or another. The genre, I realized, like, their brand is, this is the book that each creator wants to do more than any other book at that moment. That's the brand. The brand is, it's your passion project. It's your creator-owned, you know, project that you're more excited about than anything else, no matter what it is. And I think the readership, when you see the success of the books, and we all talk, and you see, you know what, I'm surprised the book did better than I thought, and it goes like that with so many books now in Image. You realize you guys are just changing the industry rapidly by supporting us, all of us, you know, doing projects that we're passionate about that historically might not be quite as commercially viable, or might not be as, you know, appealing, or might be risky or different than what we do on superheroes, if we do superheroes. And now it's almost like if you don't try and do creator-owned and you're on superheroes, you know, it's almost like fans want to see what you could do. They want you to go out there and say, I'm going to challenge myself and do something that's personal and different that you wouldn't expect from me, and on the superhero books too. So it's really, I honestly feel, as corny as it sounds, it's like the most exciting time to be a part of comics, because it's changing in all these exciting and scary ways too, where you guys are really changing and transforming. It's like a transformative moment where you guys are demanding things that are just making this huge seismic shift in the industry itself, you know.
You, Sean, you mentioned the financial part, which is important, and also marking it up. Maybe you can confirm, because I've got a friend artist that told me that every time he sees Mark, his pitch line to convince him to come and walk with him is, why don't you come walk with me? Aren't you tired of not being a millionaire yet? So.
Yeah, that's exactly how that's not a lie.
That's true.
Yeah, no, he's very much, he would admit it. He's been motivated by money on the horizon. But, you know, the art and the creativity still are a priority for him. But I think part of the artist of Mark Millar is working the room and selling. I think that's artistic in itself. So I love it. And you don't meet a lot of people like him in comics who are taking full advantage of this. And I've heard some of his ideas of what he's planning, and I'm not sure what I'm allowed to talk about, but it's pretty impressive. Like, he'll say things, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that sounds good. And I'm just along for the ride, you know? And I told him, I worked so hard to try to move up in comics my whole career. I felt like I never had anything really handed to me. I mean, the biggest bit of luck was when I worked with Grant Morrison on a book that I didn't really understand. And then working with Scott, and I was like, okay, good. And then when Mark Millar calls, it just picks you up like, hey, here you go. Like, I've never just been like upgraded for free like that. And I told him like how uncomfortable it is, because, you know, Irish Catholic family, you work for everything. And it's just, I don't know, just to take the burden on your shoulders at any time you can, and just to be given a free lunch, it's nuts. So I find myself like drawing the hardest I can. So I'm like, see, aren't you glad you hired me? He's like, yeah, that's why I hired you. This is fine. I'm like, yeah, what about this page? And I'm just constantly trying to earn this lunch that he's given me. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know.
And you mentioned that, of course, you talk a lot between each others when you see at conventions or different places. Are you often trying to convince also other artists to move on to do creator-owned, or is it like a subject you...
So my quick answer is I used to when I saw this coming, but when I saw a lot of these idiots continue to still work on these big characters and not even try to think about image, I finally just started talking them into, you know what, good. You go over with Marvel DC, because I don't want you competing with my book. So I'm just sabotaging people now. I'm sure you guys are a lot nicer than that. You guys should all work for Marvel, by the way.
Also, an interesting change in the last years at Image has been, I think, on the marketing, when they moved from doing a lot of variant covers, for example, for titles that help to support the books, until recently when they moved to a different approach, like reprinting the first issues at a really low price at $1 a book, to allow the readers to just jump into a book and give it a try for like a very small amount of money, and also collecting the first volumes at also a very low price, like usually about 30% less than what it usually costs. What do you think about these ideas? Are they stuff that talk to you, like in terms of trying to get more people on board and trying to convince more people to read and try new books?
Yeah, I don't think #1 issues should just be a collector's item that's always going up in price. So 5 years later, no one can even find it or afford it. And I really like the fact that Image has offered all these $1 first issues. Our first issue is frequently on sale or free on Comixology. Yeah, I like how it's always available, and no matter what point we're at in the series, because we're going to be doing it for a long time, we want it to be easy for new readers to jump on, like, at any time. And Image is really helping to facilitate that.
Yeah, you mentioned variant covers as well, right? And variants is just a trick. It's just, just make it to add the number. numbers bonuses, but bumping a little bit. But in general, there's just stuff for collectors. So basically, it's the same guy that buys the same issue like 5 times. So it's not new readers. So actually, it's not gonna pay off in the long term. It's just something that you do for that issue to have numbers.
Yeah, because a couple of years ago, like 5-10 years ago, Image was doing, I don't know, sometimes like 10 to 15 different bound covers for the
Yeah.
same book, and
Well, you do it normally for the first issue to have, big numbers, but it doesn't bring in new readers. It's not something.
no, of course, and well, the variant covers actually right now are like doing a lot less. And Brian, you asked the readers in one of your letters, and at the end of the books, like what they thought about doing variant covers for an issue of Saga, and what was the reaction?
Everyone said no. If Fiona is going to draw 20 covers, they'll buy 20 Fiona covers. But I think, yeah, Saga readers, I think, see that cover as part of the story, and they didn't want it, so we didn't do it. And that's the great thing about Image, is that there's not a marketing team saying, here's what we're going to do this month, or we're all going to, whatever you want to do. When I told Robert Kirkman, I said, I think for Saga, we want to do a 48-page supersize issue for a really cheap price. He said, that is a terrible idea. You're going to take a bath on this, you'll make no money. But he said, I think you should do it just so you can see that you can do whatever you want at Image, even really bad ideas. And we did it, and it worked. And then a few months ago, Robert called me and said, yeah, Outcast #1 is coming out. It's 48 pages for a cheap price. So yeah, they're very sweet that they say, if you want to do 100 variant covers at Image, you can. If you want to do none, you can. It's just that each book is allowed to be its own thing is really what's special about Image.
So even some marketing tools are like left in your hands, meaning that you can also decide what you're going to do.
Yeah, and the media rights is another huge thing that a lot of other companies, even companies that would say they're creator-owned, they would sort of take a huge chunk of a potential movie or a TV show, or they would say we have to do it through sort of our sister company. And I love that Image is really sort of the last comic publisher, that a lot of their success could be attributed to the Walking Dead TV show, but they've made $0 from the Walking Dead TV show. They make nothing, and that's what they tell us up front, is we take none of your movie rights. If you want there to never be a TV show of your work, if you want to do whatever, it's great. And most comics publishers, I think, have kind of become entertainment companies now. They're not comics publishers. They're looking to develop intellectual property in the hope that one will be this sort of black swan that will break out and become a huge TV show or a movie, and they'll make a lot of money. Image really doesn't care because they take nothing. And the fact that that was their deal 20 years ago when they started, and it's still their deal, is kind of extraordinary.
Sean, you wanted to add something?
Oh, yeah, I was going to talk about variant covers and ask you guys, do you think that that's a good idea to keep doing that? Because I feel, and I do them, I draw them, I accept them. I have Fiona doing, and Matteo doing stuff for my book, and vice versa. I feel like it's kind of a gimmick, and I remember 10 years ago, it was between Image booms, and we were talking about variant covers, like, you want to do a variant? Like, yeah, how about like a holographic one? Joking around, like, why would you do that again? We knew that was a bad idea. Yet here we are doing variant covers again, driving stores crazy, because they don't want to order 5 copies, 5 different covers. It's hard on them. I know it boosts the numbers, but I wonder if maybe we should self-censor and maybe not do that stuff as much, which is why I like that you have in the Saga, actually. As much as I want to draw one, I think it's good that you didn't let me.
And I don't even know if this is meaningful here, if variant covers are just something that's specific to North America. But no, it is. I think it's small-term gains, and it's a long-term loss. That it briefly bumps up your numbers, and then over time, stores are left with a lot of different covers sitting on their shelves, and readers are confused. Do I already buy this issue? I think in the long term, just put out a great product and put all your energy into that. I think it's probably the way to go.
Okay, thanks.